Good afternoon. I hope that you have had a wonderfully productive day, and I thank you for choosing to end your day with us. I'm going to turn around and say hello to the people to whom my back is facing. We're going to be talking about civic engagement in a hyper-connected world. There is no secret that our civic engagement, social technology tools have played a larger and larger role in our everyday life, and particularly in the spheres of social and political atmosphere, social and political civic engagement. From Tunisia and the Arab Summer to Brexit, to Black Lives Matter in the United States, to the elections that have happened all around the world, we have seen an unprecedented use of technology for good and for bad in our public sector, and that is the focus of our panel today. So I am delighted to have with me some wonderfully engaging and knowledgeable guests, and let me introduce them to you. Mr. Stanislas Potier is the Global Head of Sustainable Development at Crédit Agricole. Anja Wiedengelper is the first woman to be elected to serve as Chancellor of Geneva. Anna Maria Corazza Bildt is a Member of Parliament for the European Parliament. And Amira Yayaoui is the President and founder, I did that right, didn't I? I was listening to Alba Salwa. So we are delighted to have you here today to talk about this very important topic, and one that we will see more of as the days and the weeks progress. So I'm going to start with you, Madam Chancellor, if we're going to be formal. What does our...
Anja is okay.
Anja is okay? Okay.
Perfect.
After 2 days, I think we can be a little informal. Okay. What does our collective experience of social media engagement and the recent political campaigns tell us about the opportunities and the limitations of this new technology?
Well, in the field of democracy, during the first years of when I became a chancellor, I mainly focused on participation. I thought that was important, well, I still think that's important, especially to engage young people with projects, different projects, as only 3 out of 10 vote. In the last years, I've seen coming up 2 new threats to democracy, and that's kind of my obsession at the moment. So algorithms on which social media are based tend to create reality bubbles. People choose the media and the social media they follow. So they get a homogeneous news feed. People no longer listen to each other or confront themselves to other views. And they kind of listen to a louder echo of their own voice, as put it Sunstein in his recent book, which is called #Republic. So people don't listen to each other, and that leads to populism also. So what can we do to bring back a democratic debate in which our different opinions enrich each other? The second threat is even more frightening. The people in these reality bubbles are easy victims for companies who influence elections and votes for money by using filtering, big data, psychology, and micro-targeting on social media. With only 300 Facebook clicks or other clicks, they can draw a deep psychological profile. There are 32 profiles, I heard. And then they will send tailored information or tailored ads through social media to hundreds of thousands of people. They touch the trigger points and they manipulate. So some people are talking about hacking elections and systems. Okay, that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that wouldn't be a problem. But the consequence would be we would have to do the election again. Well, but these massive massive manipulations, it's just worse because it's not yet illegal. And I mean, democracy is not something that is not related to our lives or our businesses. Democracy is deciding how we want to live. So how can we adapt our political democratic decision process to protect democracy? And honestly, I don't have the answers. I'm still looking for it. What I know is that we have to use transparent digital tools, and we have to launch initiatives to empower citizens, because there is no trust without transparency. And in Switzerland, and especially in Geneva, we are pioneering e-voting. We had the first, so I'm not talking about voting machines like in the US, but online voting. And we had the first online vote in 2003, first in the world. And we have a great system, state of the art, one of the best in the world, but people won't trust the system just because you tell them that it's great technically. And so that's why we decided to go open source, to really help the community to see what's inside and to take power, so they understand that it's not someone else's tool or a tool from a company, but it's really our collective democratic tool. And I think the second thing also, we probably have to educate or even regulate more on personal data. How can people protect their lives?
Mm-hmm. Did you say something about redoing elections? I think all of us from the United States would like to talk further with you about that after the session. So let me ask Stanislas Potier, if I may. You've created something called Jamais Sans Elle, and which is a use of social media to advance an important cause. Talk to us about that.
So I participated in the creation of Jamais Sans Elle. I'm not, of course, the sole. It's a collaborative and collective initiative and adventure, and it came out of a shock. One of us, it was end of 2015, was invited to a new tech summit organized by the French presidency. And there were many people, and only men, on stage. And so he realized that this was not possible and tweeted out that it cannot go on like this. And of course, there was a lot of retweet and backing of his position. And we were a group of men, only men, with some of our friends, girl, and they had created some years before several summits and initiatives around women empowerment, and we kept criticizing them because they were not inviting men, and we were telling them, you are doing very important things and you're having a lot of fun and would like to join. And so they created a small group of men. That's how we came together to think about the Jamais Sans Elle initiative. And so out of this shock, we just said that what can we do to push the issue on social media? And we thought about a hashtag, Jamais Sans Elle, and we tweeted about that, and it had a tremendous success. So then we built on that, and we invited individuals to commit to Jamais Sans Elle with a very simple commitment: no quota, nothing, just when a man is invited to a collective event with round tables, with several people talking, and there is no women, we just said we cannot go, we cannot accept this. We don't request quota, but we request diversity, and we want at least some women to be present and to exchange with us. Again, it has a lot of success. So we had more than 100 people, very powerful people from the economic world, associative, media, political circles, committing to this very simple objective and to Jamais Sans Elle. And since we wanted really the adventure, the initiative to be both women and men fighting for the same issue, of course we had a lot of women committing also to Jamais sans elle. So this started beginning of in January 2016, and it's still on. So everyone can join us on the. It's very simple. You just send us a Twitter message at Jamais sans elle, everything attached, and you can also use the hashtag Jamais sans elle and send your message, and we will back, of course, your messages. So, and now we're trying to develop the initiative a bit more than only individual commitments, reflecting with companies to what it could mean for an institution to commit to this kind of idea, and also for cities. We are thinking about what could it mean for a city to commit to Jamais sans elle. So we started thinking about that with the French city, Montpellier, and also with an American one, San Francisco. And we have several ideas to measure what's going on, whether there are some progresses or not, and also to attract people and attract those who can change the paradigm and the situation, and push forward the situation and have it progress. But so far we're doing all this through social media.
Interesting. So that is an excellent example of how social media can help to advance the social issues such as diversity and inclusion by saying we will not participate in anything where there are no women, which is great. So I want to turn now to Amira, in terms of how social media impacts political organizations and uprisings, shall we say. So tell us a little bit about your work in Tunisia.
So, as many of you know, Tunisia was a dictatorship until 2010, and then we had a revolution that topped off the past president Ben Ali, and we had a country to build in a democratic way. So imagine yourself, 11 million people with almost no one who lived under a democracy. We don't know even what it is. Before Ben Ali, we had another dictator, Bourguiba, and before Bourguiba, we had the French, and before the French, we had the Romanians, and before the Romanians, we had others. So this is the first time this country and these people, 11 million people, decide for themselves, and it was very difficult, actually, to organize, to get the information, and usually you would patronize those who don't know what is freedom, because you think they won't know what it is, and they are so designed to be slaves that they will stay that way their whole life, and they won't seek for a good government or good governance. Second, Tunisia has an internet penetration of 38% at the time. And with that, I decided to found this NGO that was totally online. The idea was, yes, you have only 38% who access internet, but these 38% are already enough to talk to the rest of the 60%. Plus, internet allows you to do so much with so little money. So that was the whole idea. 3 years after, it was amazing because Al-Bawsala became the most trending thing online in Tunisia. And I was very, very proud to say that our Twitter feed was more important to Tunisians than the football team, the national football team in Tunisia. And, you know, we're African. Football is a really great, a big deal. So what we did was this platform that is social media, and I know now with Trump becoming the god of Twitter, it's very complicated to talk about this in a positive way. I mean, everyone is like terrified about what the internet can bring, etc. But in my country, at least, and until today, internet and social media is that place where you don't, and maybe for the English speakers here won't get it, but for the French speakers, there is the tu and there is the vous. So the vous is a more formal way. This is how you address your majesty, for example. The two is how we talk when we're just friends and we're informal. No one would say a vous for any president on Twitter, while when you're in front of any president of the world, you're like, oh my God, this is such an important person. No one take it very seriously, the fact that the politicians are above the people. Actually, internet switch it, because whoever does politics and knows how social media can be hard for politicians, because you will have thousands of people, whatever you do wrong, who are coming and getting you. And we actually use that in a very good way, which means we made millions of Tunisians participate to a process that was designed for 217 parliamentarians. I was inside this very small parliament, and I remember the first day I got in, most 80% of the MPs didn't know how to use internet. I remember even an MP who came to me and he asked me, I want to get Facebook on my computer. I said, you want only Facebook? He said, yeah, I think, internet is very expensive. I just need Facebook. So this guy who was, who was of a certain age and who, he doesn't even know how to use his phone, you know? He ended up 2 years later commenting and replying to citizens online. And this, and I know, I am very, this is a very positive message for many of you, and maybe I will look very naive and all of that, and I've been myself harassed online, so I know what it means, this negativeness of social media. But I can tell you that if you use this, this tool, and you see the power it can give, and you believe in the power, then you will see how stupid we are when we look at ourselves today and we think about it in 20 years. We will look like those when TV has been launched, they were saying devil is in the room. So it's up to us to use this platform in the good and in the bad. When I see people complaining about Trump on Twitter, I am like, why don't you do the same with good content? There are two ways. Whether you think the 7 billion people on Earth are stupid, or you think you don't get it and you should actually, instead of asking Twitter to shut down his account, to get an account not with 39 million people, but with 100 million people.
That is an excellent point, and I can go chapter and verse on Trump and Twitter.
My goal in life is that he blocks my Twitter feed. So.
I'm hoping for the same thing, yeah.
Yes.
It's a badge of honor now when the right people block you. Right. So the internet, social media has been a really great tool and a force for good, but it's not all sunshine and roses. Chancellor has talked about the reality bubbles that are created. And now, Anna Maria, as a member of parliament, I know that you've been working on issues, and talk to us some about the work around balancing the freedom of expression with privacy rights and protection of some of the most vulnerable women and our children.
Thank you, Leah. Let me first say how glad I am to be at the Global Women Conference. It's been 2 amazing days. Thank you for all the amazing women and men that I've been meeting here. Hope to continue. Well, yes, the digital revolution, the digital technology is giving amazing opportunity for civic engagement. And I don't think there is one single NGO that is not mobilizing, raising awareness, fundraising, crowdfunding, driving campaigns, doing all the advocacy work online. It's cheap and fast. So there are very many positive forces that are really using the social media and the internet. I just want to say, our policymaker, what is our work? I come from the experience of field work in the wars in Bosnia and so on, and really you see how it is important now that I am in politics to support those who are working in the field, at grassroots, in the communities, to change people's lives. And this week, for instance, we have made a public debate, adopted the resolution on child marriage. And here you have an amazing campaign. It's a global partnership. Girls, not brides. Everybody can go to it. It was from local to European to global. And of course, the hashtag end child marriage. And our debates are public. that's, in response to what you say. We get out of the bubble. We Twitter, Facebook, Instagram in all European languages. And our debates, anyone can look at it, spread it, web stream live, and of course have different views representing, at least the views of all the people of Europe. 2 weeks ago, we did the one on end genital mutilation, female genital mutilation, a terrible crime that, as you know, is very widespread. It affects millions of girls. And there again, we have, the END FGM global network with amazing NGOs part of it. And what do? We support them by spreading in our network, putting out the political agenda, keeping it up in policymakers, that you change the laws and you see that the laws are implemented, that you help changing the culture, the mentality, and this we do, of course, for the global gag rules. The day after President Trump has reinstated it, which means, friends, that a very, very big part of the global funding from the United States for women's health, for reproductive sexual rights, has been cut from one day to the other, to parental, also to UNICEF, to UN organizations, to Parental Federation, and so on. So the day after, we had the She Decides campaign, where governments, us, the Commission, politicians, European, we have been driving this campaign, bringing the European Union to compensate this funding and to take the lead for women's health and women's rights in the world, where unfortunately we were working together before hand in hand with the US, and now we cannot do it to the same extent. We have, everybody knows about Bring Back Our Girls hashtags, with the terrible crime committed by Boko Haram in Africa, in northern Nigeria, when girls were kidnapped, and Michelle Obama, but we all were also. We have supported the Women March in the United States, marching in Europe, but also bringing it on the net. So there are so many of these positive examples, and not the least, since I'm responsible in the European Parliament for the work on violence against women, prevention, fighting, and protect the victims. We have very big campaigns with the hashtag Stop Violence Against Women. And I have been doing this week, actually, from the European Parliament Facebook account, which has hundreds of thousands of followers, a live chat with anyone from all over the world could put me question, and I was answering live. So we are using in as much as we can, but we're talking about the challenges and the risks. And I would like to answer to you the issue of privacy. That's really crucial. We have on our table right now the e-privacy regulation. I don't want not to get into too much into legislation, because we are, of course, first of all, regulators, even if I feel myself also as a human rights activist. But there I think we have to strike the right balance. The text we have on the table now is actually too restrictive. For NGOs, for fundraising, it will really affect a lot of civil society work. Because it's too much, I'm sorry, I have to say, too much on limiting the possibility to, if you don't have the explicit consent for everything, you will not be able to use the net. So we have really big challenges on our table to strike the right balance between freedom of expression, but not allowing that, the 30 naked pictures of a girl that are put online, she gets, after 1 year, Facebook doesn't put it down, and she commits suicide, because that happened. So freedom of expression, yes, but also combating the new crimes that come with the digital revolution. Protecting privacy, yes, but not restricting the civil society, media pluralism online. Thank you.
So let me ask, as civic engagement becomes much more of an important tool, as technology becomes much more of an important tool in civic engagement, I think we have to also keep in mind that half of the world's population is not connected, has no access to the internet. So how do we engage the people for whom we may be fighting when they are not themselves connected? Who are we leaving out in this conversation around technological tools, and how do we bring them in?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to, I know I heard your question, but I'm going to answer not to that question. Today, you know who's out? Women are out of technology, not poor people only. Women are out of technology because today, technology is built by men. When you see coding, for example, all the things we're looking at, Facebook, Google, etc., and you see the number, the percentage of women who are building these tools, it's nothing. It's 3%, 4%, 5%. What women have been fighting for the past 50, 60 years to get men and women at the same level, we are going to lose it with this technological revolution. Because women are users, they are not builders. And this is the thing that terrifies me the most when we talk about technology, is what are we doing with our girls? What are we creating? We are creating people who don't know how to read code. And that in 10, 20 years will be the new analphabetism. I don't know how to say it in English. Ignorance. And this is really terrifying.
So I want to put a finer point
Yeah.
on my question. I do a lot of work in Appalachia in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And
And
in the community where I do work, until 18 months ago, they had no internet.
Yeah.
So they had no experience of what the world was like outside of the bubble that they live. And to talk to them about coding is like a foreign language. They don't even know how, they cannot, because the technology, the fiber does not exist. So what I'm interested in us talking a bit about is how we bring those people into this revolution and into the civic engagement and the fights that we're fighting that are for them, recognizing our own privilege that we are even able to connect.
Go ahead.
Yeah, whether it's people who don't have access to internet or even people who do have access, I'm convinced that technology is a great tool, but it's not enough. You have to engage people physically. I work a lot on children because we have that problem that they don't vote, and in Switzerland you vote all the time. We vote every 3 months. We have to decide on various subjects. And they don't vote, not because they forget. They don't vote because they think that it has nothing to do with them. They know it exists, they know, but it's just not for them. So what I try to do is really to create an emotional or a physical link between children. I prefer the children under 12. That's the best age. Then they get confused by hormones and other things. And we really bring them to the city hall. They are prepared during 4 hours by the teacher. They come to the city hall. They sit. They look at the city hall. It's like a museum. And we tell them what is happening there. But the most important part, they are role-playing. They are sitting in the very chairs where the members of parliament or members of government are sitting normally. And they talk about laws, about motions, about different things. And that's really the way where we try to make that connection. So they know, I've been there, I touched it. Sometimes you have to feel, to touch something physically, and then you can add information. Then it's cool, they can hear, oh, what's the name of the parliament, but you have to touch them first.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I have founded and I'm leading the group on children's rights in the European Parliament. And we invite children, very much also young people. We have open debates, etc. The whole idea of using digital technologies to increase participation, so no one should be left behind, because that's the nature of what we try to do. And I think that there really the business community stakeholder has a huge responsibility in investing in infrastructure. We are in Europe the biggest humanitarian superpower in the world. We are the biggest development aid giver in the world, and we are investing a lot in all third countries to increase also access to digital tools to benefit the local community. We have so many examples also of telecom companies, for instance, who in Africa have invested and given the possibility to women in isolated community to sell their products, to make the voice heard. So there's a lot of happening, but we are working very much to create a legal framework that gives legal certainty, that is future-proof, that is clear, to boost innovation, facilitate innovation, and not block innovation. And it's very difficult for policymakers because we are not anymore in the driving seat. It is digital entrepreneurship that's in the driving seat. Politicians don't like that. So, but the other thing is that there are crimes that are committed on the net. There's a need to protect the vulnerable groups, and we really need to have also legislation. But I am a great believer in what I call structured self-regulation, and we see an amazing engagement for the business community in really making the digital revolution accessible to all, which is really was your question.
I hesitated taking the floor. Usually we say that in a group of men with one or two women, they don't dare take the floor. But this was so intelligent, I didn't dare in my turn. No, I'm kidding. But I find these are two absolutely fundamental issues: education and also changing the habits. So both individual and institutional commitments. You cannot change institutions if you don't reach out to individuals, and individuals won't have much clout if they don't change the institutions in which they work, with whom they work, etc. And one of our founding members happens to be today's French Minister of Education. So this is very interesting, and we already discussed with him about books. How do you present live things, issues to children, and how do you present inspiring characters? For instance, you were talking about coding, but I guess many people here know that the person who calculated the pathway of Apollo was a woman. But so we tweeted it with Jamais Sans Elle. But I think this is important, just to reach out to characters that maybe we don't think spontaneously, but to show that this is possible, and it has to change, because you're right. In the new tax and in the fintechs, it's appalling. Things don't change, and you see even less women now than you could see some years before. So you really have to show it's possible, it's interesting, it's absolutely it's something interesting for women, and you have to change habits in the educational system. And also, again, I think it's very important to inspire people, and usually you don't. The discussion we have with city halls, for instance, in several towns, if you don't have women characters in the streets, in public buildings, and you keep thinking about great historical men characters, not women, well, all these things add together and consolidate bad habits. So. I guess with internet you can change many things. Then it have to crystallize in the real life, so to speak. But it's a hard work. We have to push things forward all together, because I guess what is not possible individually, of course, can be possible collectively.
Well, can I say, join the White Ribbon Campaign, which is about men committed to combat violence against women by coming into the race of changing mentalities, combating sexism, machism, and stereotypes. We need men in the race. Welcome.
Sure.
Amira?
It is a lie to say that it's very difficult to connect the world. It doesn't cost that much. Today, technology allows to connect Africa with like nothing. Today, I believe in one thing, which is the internet tax. All these GAFA, instead of only paying taxes by money, they need to connect these countries that are left alone. Every country and every government who can afford to pay to put free access to internet in city halls, in streets, should do it. And this is not that expensive. It is as much as a lie as when we used to pay hundreds of dollars to call someone, while now we pay nothing. We have today a monopoly that is keeping technology expensive, and this is a role that, for me, is the role of politicians, that, okay, you can get your business, it's okay, but in the places where it is impossible to get access, then it's compulsory to give that access.
That's an excellent point. I'm getting my signal, and so Sophie's a very kind signal giver. And so we want to wrap up, and I think we could spend hours on this topic. I certainly could, having lived through the Clinton campaign and the Trump selection. So I could give you chapter and verse on all this. So, but I want to ask you as we close, how will you take action? And give us an action, give us an assignment, one thing that we can do to help move the civic engagement, the social media tools forward in the realm of civic engagement.
Well, I think we don't have yet a reaction which could help us for these manipulations. That's still a problem. With all we said, it's still a problem that some have been elected and some decided to leave the UN, and probably it was a company behind with money. And for me, that's a huge problem. Even if I see all the good stuff with social media, I totally agree. That remains a problem. We don't have a solution. What I think we have to do it's at our level to engage others. It's like when you're a woman at a position, make it easier, leave something behind that it would be easier for other women, engage young people. I created in Geneva the Democracy Week around Democracy Day, 15th of September, so that everyone, every school, every university can do an event, can ask themselves at least once a year, what can I do to engage people?
Dennis?
Yeah, I would say just keep on, stick to some commitments, measure them with indicators, show how things can change, show successes, and again inspiring moments or characters to engage people. And I think that we individually, if we engage our stakeholders around us, we can be very, very efficient. But again, we have to do it again and again. It's a long time process, and if you know that if we sometimes, I would say in French, si on baisse la garde, or if we're not as dedicated as we used to be, then things again start slowly to go back to where they were. So we really have to be vigilant and stick to it.
Wonderful. Anna Maria, an action we can take.
You know what, I really should have said that we have abolished roaming costs in Europe, which really gives access to so many more people to the internet benefits. Well, the internet revolution gives the possibility to everyone to be a player and an actor. And I think we really have a responsibility to combat stereotypes, sexism, machism, by using a language and a tone in the internet, in the social media that respects women and girls, and to react when this doesn't happen. Because the hate speech, the denigration, the harassment, the you, me, you, and so many other women and girls are victim of is really unacceptable. And it's time to go from word to action. Everyone can make a difference, and together we make change.
Don't leave girls behind. It's a huge battle that is coming, and let us make builders, not users. That is my action.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you to all of our panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.